Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. Many of you may not know this, but since December of 2015, I have been a disc jockey on www.irockradio.me. I have worked in radio almost all of my life, and I've been working for this internet radio station for my old friend Jay Hunter, who is the program director. Well, Jay was nice enough to let me do a Facebook Live on the irockradio.me Facebook page on Monday as a way to promote my upcoming 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way. And Jay was nice enough to let me share that Facebook Live with you here on my channel, Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. So right now we're going to pick up with that Facebook Live. But remember to donate in the fight against domestic violence in honor of my pilgrimage. Go to casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/. That is CASAPINELLAS.org/walkwithrick/. I appreciate it, and now I'm going to be joined by me, but from earlier.
So those of you who listen to irockradio.me, you know me as Rick Becker. I've been on irockradio.me as Rick Becker since December of 2015. That is when I started. My first shift was actually on Christmas Eve, I remember, on irockradio.me. Over the years, I've really focused on doing a lot of interviews for iRock in addition to my DJ shifts. So you've heard me interview Dave from Soul Asylum, Vinny from Sponge, Carl Bell from Fuel, members of Kingdom Collapse, members of a whole bunch of bands. I've interviewed a lot of the irockradio.me artists. It has been an absolute blast to work here for the past, I guess, over 6 years now on iRock. Of course, a lot of people in the central Pennsylvania area remember me being Rick Becker on a rock radio station in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We won't talk about that because we're not going to promote other radio stations, but you remember me from there, where I worked for 9 years. And I also did some sports radio back in Pennsylvania under the Rick Becker name. Well, under a family name of Rick Doherty, that is where I am doing a 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way. I am starting in the small town of Castletownbere in the southwestern corner of Ireland. And I'm going to be hiking 620 miles over a little less than 2 full months. And I will be going all the way to the north, basically the northeastern corner of the island. I'm going to be going basically right up the gut, right up the middle of the island. And I'm going to be doing this to raise money and awareness in the fight against domestic violence, specifically with the organization CASA of Pinellas County here in Florida, where I live. Our goal is to raise money for this organization, and it took us a really long time to get this set up because we had a very, very specific goal that the money go immediately to the organization. I'm going to be in another country, so I can't have this money going into an account for me, and then I get back, and then they get the money. This money is going directly to CASA. The link to send the donations is actually casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/. So this link is actually a part of CASA's website. I'm not touching this money, but they will know if you are donating it to them through me, so we can all sort of, hey, y'all, you want to take credit for it, right? We are doing this through CASA of Pinellas County, an organization that has been around for years, helping in many different aspects of the life of victims of domestic violence, helping victims become survivors. So that is what I'm going to be doing. I know we might have some people joining here who also know me from one or maybe two of my podcasts. I have the podcast Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We have grown that immensely over the past year and a half. We actually just had our biggest episode ever. We hit a huge milestone. We had our biggest month ever of listenership back in May, and we had our biggest episode 2 weeks ago. We've already hit more listeners on an episode than we've ever had on any episode in the past. I also, under the Rick Becker moniker, host a podcast, the Irish Baseball Podcast, which I have been doing for about a year and a half as well. So I'm sure I'm going to have people joining me here who know me from all of those different things. I'm going to give just some of the details and keep going until I have any questions. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 7th, I am hopping on a plane. I'm going to have a layover, and then I'm heading out to Dublin, where I'm going to arrive on Wednesday late morning to basically around noon Dublin time. They are 5 hours different than us here on the East Coast of the United States. I'm going to spend 3 nights in Dublin so that I can acclimate myself to the time change. I can do any sightseeing. I'm going to want to see Dublin and do some of the touristy things before I head out on this journey, because after walking 620 miles, I am not going to want to be walking around town doing a lot of sightseeing. On Sunday, that is when I'm going to start my journey. That is when I am going to, hello, James. That is when I am going to start walking the 620 miles. It takes most people who do this route about 40 days. Some people stretch it out to be more like 45, 46. I'm giving myself a good 50 days to do it, maybe more, 50, 52 days. Jay asked if they're okay. So I'm not seeing the questions here, but Jay had asked if there was a significance to the number 620. There is. It's 1,000 kilometers. So if somebody runs a 10K race here in the United States, that's 6.2 miles. So I think the significance in the number is actually the kilometers. But because I am American, this is going to be the first time I've ever left the country. So I use sort of our system of measurement and not the metric system, but I guess it sounds a whole lot more impressive when you say 1,000 kilometers. Julie asked, how many miles per day? Thank you. Oh, I see. Here we go. I'm starting to see the questions now, so thank you very much. How many miles a day do you plan on doing on the trip? That is a great question. My goal is to do 16 miles per day early and then reduce that as I get later in the journey. My goal is to wake up at 8 o'clock not wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, but start walking at 8 o'clock in the morning, walk for 4 hours. That should get me about 8 miles if I'm taking my time, especially when I'm in the mountains earlier in the journey, and then take a 2-hour break. I have a chair, like I'm going to be lugging a chair along with me. I'll take a 2-hour break. I'll let my legs rest. I'll eat some food, and then I will pick up again from like 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 6 o'clock. So that should give me about 16 miles per day. But then as I start to get ahead of my pace, my goal is to reduce my mileage every day and give myself a little more time. I've been a runner for a long time, and I know they say you're supposed to pace yourself when you run, but I've always been a person who really, really likes to get ahead of the game, run my fastest, so I know that by the end, to hit my goals, I can sort of, find a steady pace later. So I like to get ahead of the game and then start to slow down a little bit and take my time later. Am I going alone or hiking with somebody else? That's also Julie. I am going by myself. I'm going to be alone, but one of the aspects of this trip, and one of the reasons I chose to do it when I'm doing it, is this is the most common time of year for people to be doing the Ireland way. The weather in Ireland is really nice, and right now it's awful in Florida where I live. We just did some chores earlier today, and it was almost gross. This is going to be really nice weather, so people who do this pilgrimage, this is the time of the year they do it, and I'm definitely expecting to see people on the trail. Also, I've talked to people who have done it in the past, and they do say that one of the best things about this particular pilgrimage is the hospitality in the small towns that you hit along the journey. I'm hoping that going by myself won't feel like I am alone. That is a great question. Julie also asked, thank you for asking so many questions, Julie. How have you been prepping for this? So I've been doing pilgrimages locally since right around when the pandemic started. There's an organization, Modern Catholic Pilgrim. And when the pandemic hit, and people obviously weren't doing any of these pilgrimages or things like that. They weren't traveling out of the country. Most of the countries were shut down and things like that. So this organization decided to try to promote local pilgrimages and just find trails around you and hike them. He had a pilgrimage for Mary in May of 2020. That was the first one I did. And I went to the Pinellas Trail here in the St. Petersburg area of Florida, and I just hiked the whole thing. I did it over 2 days. It was like 43 miles or something like that. That's a good question, Jimmy. I definitely have that one coming up here in a minute. So I've done a few of those. Obviously, hiking here in Florida is an awful lot different than it's going to be in Ireland. There are going to be challenges in Ireland that I don't have here. A lot of people who might be here, if you got it because you listen to my podcast where I talk about travel and I talk about Disney and things like that. Well, the biggest mountain we have here is probably Space Mountain in Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. So we don't get mountains. I don't get to do a lot of that kind of hiking, and there will be some in Ireland. The other thing that is a whole lot different is the weather here is much, much worse for it. So while I'll be hiking in mountains, which will be challenging, I will be dealing with just a lot better weather. So Jimmy asks, what music is on your playlist? So obviously I know a lot of people listening to irockradio.me will want to know that answer. And yes, I have a ton of iRock artists, but as many people who've listened to me over the years at iRock know, I'm big into the 90s alternative, especially the grunge stuff. So I have a ton of Pearl Jam on there. I have some Nirvana. There's Soundgarden. I have some of the 90s more alternative bands, but of course, I'm from Central Pennsylvania originally. I'm wearing a Barnstormers hat in this video, a Lancaster Barnstormers hat. So I definitely have Fuel. Obviously, the Jelly Bricks from Central Pennsylvania. Anybody who's been there for a while knows about the Jelly Bricks, a fantastic band from Central Pennsylvania. And then I listen to a lot of different stuff. So I have some Garth Brooks on there. I have the Cranberries. You can't be in Ireland without having the Cranberries on your list. U2. Just an absolute whole bunch of stuff. Julie asks, are you ending in Northern Ireland or northeast of the Republic of Ireland? That is a fantastic question, and it gets to my chores from earlier today. I actually had to get cash in both euros and British pounds because I will be crossing the border into the United Kingdom or Northern Ireland. So, yeah, I'm going to be crossing an international border during this. Hopefully, that day will be a lot easier than I'm expecting, but I'm perfectly willing for that border crossing to take me a long time because we don't even know what, with Brexit, we don't even know what a lot of that's going to look like when I'm there. Jay asks, when and why did you decide to do this as a charity for victims of domestic violence? Yeah, this is a cause that is super important to me. I grew up in an abusive household, not talked about it a lot until recently, but I felt that this was very, very important to me. And I grew up with an abusive father, but I also grew up with a grandfather who was Irish. And he was the Irish side of my family, my mother's father. And he provided such a good example of how to be a man and not be abusive and toxic. So when I did this walk, and I wanted to do it for somebody, I wanted to do it for a charity, but it just became so obvious that I had to do it for victims of domestic violence because I wanted to do it in my grandfather's honor because he was such an incredible father. My mother's sneaking around in the comments section here, and she can definitely attest to that. He was an incredible father. He raised all daughters, and he was the most respectful person towards women, but he also handled his business. I always say he had the shiniest car on the block. Like he would, wash his car every Saturday. He would mow the lawn. His lawn was always impeccable. He worked in a factory. He worked hard work. When he got a snowblower, everybody on the block had a clear driveway anytime it snowed. I thought that he was such a good example of how a man should handle his business in a good way that's masculine, but also not abusive. And I thought it was the perfect connection to that. So that is why I picked CASA of Pinellas County. Another reason that I picked that particular organization, like I said a little earlier, is because CASA was able to set up a website where the money went straight to them. And I know that some people get weird, rightfully so. You get worried that the money isn't going where you think it's going to be going. And this way, you're going straight to their website. You're just putting /walkwithrick/ at the end of it to donate to my particular part of the cause. But this way, you know that everything is going to them. Yeah. Jay wants to know, will you be documenting videos or audio breaks during your travels? Absolutely. I am going to try to be sharing stuff with Jay so he can put stuff on irockradio.me, so he can share things on the irockradio.me Facebook page. I'm definitely going to be talking about it a ton when I get back as well. But you can also check out my YouTube channel, Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. I'm going to try to be posting videos pretty regularly on there, and I'm going to try to get audio to Jay as well for irockradio.me. I am going to be documenting this thing incredibly. Teresa asks, will this fundraiser be going on during your walk or it will continue after you get home? That's great, because my thought process here is that I'm going to be talking about this a lot when I get back, because we're hopefully setting up some things, and I didn't want it to just go on while I was walking. So if you were to want to donate even afterwards, we picked Halloween night as the day we would end the fundraiser. We're going to raise money until Halloween night. I'm going to get back in mid-August, and then we actually have to move. But we'll be working on the fundraiser as well. But my wife, Courtney, and I, we're going to move. We are going to have September and then the entire month of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is October. that we are going to try to continue raising money for this. And what we're hopefully going to be doing through that is keeping the promotion going. And once I get back and have had all of this effort, and I'll have all the videos and I'll have all the pictures, we're hoping that that will continue to make it easy to promote. So that was a really great question. Thank you. Julie says, look up Screaming Orphans, all-girl band, sisters from Bundarin. Maybe add them to your playlist. Okay, Screaming Orphans. Going to have to try to add them to my playlist. And I can try to get some of them here tonight. Actually, after I get off this live stream, one of the things I'm going to do is finalize my... I think people get a kick out of this. I am so worried about keeping a charge on all my different electronic devices that I bought an iPod like 2 weeks before they announced they were going to discontinue the iPod. So I was lucky that I got it when I got it. But I bought an iPod. I figured that's going to be my music. That's going to be my books. That's going to be all of the things that don't take a lot of battery, so that while I'm walking, that probably won't run out of battery all that soon. But I'm going to finalize everything today with my iPod. So that was a great suggestion for today, the Screaming Orphans. I will give them a listen. Teresa, are you going to be staying in hostels along the way or camping? Both. I have a tent. The tent is actually right here. We're setting everything up tonight, so I had it right beside me. The tent is right there. I am going to be doing that most of the time, staying in the tent. But I'm going to stay in some hostels. There's about 4 hostels along the way, and there's some bed and breakfasts. I will spoil myself. I'm not the type of person who has to rough it. I'll stay in a hotel. I'll stay in a bed and breakfast. But I'll also do the tent. Jay Hunter, what were the preparations needed for such long travel? I have been working on this for well over 2 years. And the preparation has changed periodically throughout this, because with the pandemic, there have been different requirements at different times for how to get to Ireland. A great example was I had to get the booster shot. I didn't technically have to get the booster shot, but I had to have a vaccine within 3 months of leaving the United States for Ireland. I had to have some vaccination in that time. So I got the booster shot, I think, on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday they announced that you no longer needed that shot. It was no longer required. Originally, I was supposed to be taking a test today, a COVID test, but now that's not required either. I would have passed it. I'm fine. We have at-home tests. I can assure you that I am good. So those were some of the preparations I needed that changed throughout the course of this. I had to be very, very adaptive. But I have been saving the money for this. I did not want to ask for a single dollar for people to help me with my travels. I mean, I had friends help me. Danielle's actually on this, a great friend from back when I lived in Pennsylvania. She has a heck of a jump shot as well. Not as good as mine, but that's a whole nother story. We played basketball together a few years ago, and she gave me a gift card for REI for my birthday last year. I got some help from, birthday gifts and things like that, where I bought some of my gear, but I didn't want to have to ask for any of the fundraising money to help with this. So I raised over $11,000 for this trip over the course of 2 years. I am not exaggerating when I say I worked 7 jobs over that time so that I could put some of the money from my part-time jobs away to do this. I have to thank my wife, Courtney. Not a lot of wives would be so understanding of that. But I put aside a lot of this money. I worked 7 jobs. I worked for baseball teams, hockey teams, football teams. You can figure out which ones. I don't want to say for obvious reasons, but I'm pretty sure you can deduce. I've worked soccer. I was a race director for an organization for over 2 years, where every month we would put on a 5K, 10K race. And that was really cool to help people realize their fitness goals while I was preparing for a fitness goal of my own, a different type of a fitness goal, because I did running for so many years. And now I was doing something different. And, all those things were fun. I was a travel agent. I did a lot, and I just set aside money every time. But in addition to that, the preparations were buying all the gear, getting this tent that is right beside me right now, and figuring out how to set it up and get it ready. The training, hitting the gym, making sure I went to the gym. And there were times that I got lazy, and every day that I didn't go to the gym, I bet you I'm going to feel that on my journey. And that's going to be one of the things that the journey is going to teach you. That's why you do these things, to show how important it is to prepare in the right way. Who will be filling in for you at irockradio.me while you're at the pub 50 days in a row? You'll still hear me on irockradio.me. The world of radio has had a wonderful and a horrible, depending on how you look at it, invention of voice tracking, which has cost a lot of people their jobs, but also has given me the ability to be on irockradio.me even while I am gone. And actually, not only will I continue to be on iRock, but if you are listening because you listened to one of my 2 podcasts earlier this weekend, I finished all of my podcasts so that Tall Guy Talks Travel will have a brand new episode every week, and the Irish Baseball Podcast will have a brand new episode every 2 weeks. So I am hustling. I have been hustling so much. That also goes to the preparation. Teresa, your wife must be a saint. Yes. She is very understanding and very helpful in all of this. She is probably going to enjoy at least the first few weeks of not having me around. But I'm sure that eventually she will wish somebody was here to take out the trash and things like that. Teresa also wanted me to mention I saved cans. That was another way I saved money for this. People who've known me for a number of years, I drink a lot of soda. I drink a ton of soda. And one of the things I've been doing for a few years is saving and selling cans. When I lived in Arizona, before I moved to Florida, we used to get a decent amount of money for those cans. That is no longer the case here. We don't get a lot of money in Florida for cans, but I've been saving it. And then I just made a deposit today of $100 in cash, which was my last deposit of the saving for this trip. And it was $100 that I had just cash saved in a jar that I was putting away. Jay Hunter asks, is there a plan in case of emergency, God forbid, sickness, injuries, etc.? So Wednesday, when I land, the first thing I will be doing is picking up my Irish phone. I'm going to have an Irish phone plan and data plan that is going to be there for emergencies. Luckily, even though I'm going to be in a pretty rural area, almost every night there will be some sort of town. I will be going through some sort of town that will have restaurants, some will have hospitals, they will all have doctors in some form or fashion. I did an interview with somebody that's going to run on my Tall Guy Talks Travel podcast, and he has done the Ireland way already, and he told a story. He said while he was doing it, he was actually charged by some cows, and he had to jump under an electric fence, and he got away from the cows, and that was great. The only problem being that he tore his calf muscle while he was doing that, and he had to take a couple weeks off from the trail and start going again. And I'm prepared in case there are issues. I think the one thing I know is that you're only prepared for what you can predict. You also have to be flexible enough to be prepared to be flexible and know that probably the biggest problem that you're going to have on something like this is one you don't foresee. So my goal is to be flexible. Like I said, I have euros, I have pounds. I'm ready to pay in cash or card. I have insurance that, international travel insurance. So I'm trying my best to cover all of the bases, prepare for the expect the best, prepare for the worst. But we'll see. Something always comes up that you don't anticipate. I do appreciate the question, Jay, because I know it could definitely be tough. I was told to make sure I didn't miss a particular question because it's good. So I'm going to. Oh, okay. Jay says, every journey changes a person. What message would you like to send to the August 2022 Rick Becker? That is a great question. I hope that it's going to be more lessons that August of 2022 Rick Becker tells to me, but I just hope that I remember why I'm doing this. I hope that August of 2022 Rick Becker enjoyed it, didn't try to rush, understood that things may go wrong and there may be issues along the way, and you do have to make it to the end of the trail by a certain time, but that the timing, the pacing isn't too much of a focus, and that while you're in rural Ireland, in the land of your ancestors, and you're seeing these things that you would never have seen if you just flew into Dublin and then took a bus to do the Blarney Stone, when you're seeing this real life taking place in front of you, that you take advantage of it. That's what I hope is the message for Rick of August 2022. Just make sure you enjoy this. You worked really, really hard to be able to do this. And remember that you're doing it for people who are going through a rough time. You're doing it for women and children who are coming out of abusive situations, and your feet hurt and your knees hurt. And that's unfortunate, but you chose this. Remember that you chose this and they didn't choose what happened to them. So don't complain too much. I believe the science that says energy is neither created or destroyed. So I think when you put forth a lot of energy into a positive goal, it puts out positive energy into the world. You don't know how it's going to manifest itself. You don't know what benefits it's going to have for you or for other people. But I feel that when you put in hard work and when you test your body to the limits, whether it be running a marathon, whether it be even running a 5K, if that's a huge challenge for you, or if it's efforts that you put into your internet radio station, like Jay busts his butt for this internet radio station to make sure that we get all of this great music, and he works really hard. All of that energy that you put into something positive always manifests itself in a positive way. Julie, did you make sure the banks have your? Yes, my banks do know that I will be overseas. They know which countries I will be visiting. So yes. Jay, with traveling, will you be able to carry a form of defense against wild animals or unforeseen bad people? I don't know about a gun or anything, but I could get a knife, which I don't know if I'm going to get a knife, which was going to be more for camping, but obviously I'm not going to get anything like that until I'm over there because I wouldn't be able to take it on the plane. I think I'm going to be okay as far as that's concerned. I'm much more worried about my knees and my heels than I am worried about anybody doing anything nefarious. The one thing I have heard from people who have done this journey is the hospitality of people is incredible. The people that you meet along the Ireland Way. And I'm very excited to meet real people. That's one of the reasons that I picked a journey like this. I didn't just want to get on the bus that takes you around Dublin and takes you to the tourist locations. This is a way to force myself out into areas I never would have seen before because they just happen to be on this route, and meet people that maybe I'm destined to meet, but I never would have met them if it wasn't for this. Jillian says I can beat people and animals with my walking sticks. Sure. I'm a vegetarian. I'd probably just let the animal attack me, you know. But this has been so much fun. I know we had some technical issues at the beginning, but now that we got everything working, this was incredible. I knew that I'm enough of a yapper that I was going to be able to make it work on my own. And you all asked some amazing questions. Jillian, who just mentioned that I could beat people and animals with my walking sticks, I want to thank her. She's an amazing friend of mine. I have to thank Marissa and Sarah, who not only do the podcast with me, my Tall Guy Talks Travel podcast, but for the past 2 months so that I could have episodes that ran all the way through mid-August. They've really given a lot of time out of their days. Jillian has done some podcasts with me so that I have enough content so that I can make it through this. I really appreciate all of you. Jay, for allowing me to voice track these shifts and for allowing me the opportunity to be on this live stream here, this Facebook Live, to talk about my journey. Courtney, my wife, obviously, you know, not a lot of wives would that's a bad term, but would be comfortable with their husbands leaving for 2 months, and some of them would be comfortable with their husbands leaving for a whole lot longer than that. My mother has helped with a lot of the logistics of calling, of getting train and bus schedules, and trying to make sure that she's been working with CASA to make sure that the website is great. I want to thank Heather, who has helped on the charity aspect as well. Teresa just said, have your wife show her beautiful face. So here's the problem. I was not seeing the questions that everybody was sending me. So my wife gave me her phone with her Facebook on it so I could read the questions off of her phone. So she has no idea what's happening in this room. So I have no way of getting her for that. I know there are probably a million other people. My friend Matt is one of the friends from Pennsylvania. I didn't get to keep many of them, but he is really a ride or die friend, and he's already been spreading the word about this. He's already donated to this. I know that, like I mentioned earlier, Danielle gave me some money so that I could get equipment. I have to thank the places where I worked. I mean, I work for a place right now that's letting me take off the next 2 months and didn't care and didn't give me grief for it. That's incredible. It's amazing that so many people have been so patient with me and helped. And I definitely have to say, Jay Hunter at irockradio.me, you have been incredible. I really, really appreciate that you let me do this. This has been super great. Yes, Jay, that is who I meant by Matt. And even when I talk about my jobs, I work a job that's going to start again for the year, the Saturday after I return. And I had to send them an email last week saying, you know, I'm going to miss any sort of trainings that you're going to have. I'm going to miss any sort of like mandatory meetups to discuss things. I hope I don't get punished for it, but I guess I would kind of understand if I'm skipping things. And they said, don't worry about it. Like, you'll be in the same position, you know, that you worked when you come back here. I'm really lucky to have the support structure to do this, because not everybody has that. And because not everybody has a great support structure, that's why I wanted to raise the money for CASA of Pinellas County. Maybe that's the best way to wrap this up here. I'm raising money for CASA of Pinellas County in the fight against domestic violence. 100% of every dollar that is donated will go to CASA of Pinellas County, because there are no processing fees. It's not going to me and then I donate it to them. It's going directly to them. You get an email thanking you from them. So you know it is going to the organization for the good of the organization, and they can start using the money immediately, but they'll also count the money, so they'll tell us how great of a job we did at the end of all of this. CasaPinellas.org/walkwithrick/ that's CasaPinellas.org/walkwithrick/. If anybody on here could just give a little bit of money, we would really, really appreciate it. This would get us off on a really great start. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Continue to listen to irockradio.me. This is such an incredible community that we have created, that Jay would let me do something like this to promote this. I really love that we have created this community. Back in April, there was the irockradio.me birthday bash at Reverb in Reading. I was actually in town in Pennsylvania for something else, but I got to be a part of the birthday bash, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life, because we had the chance to be a community of DJs on irockradio.me, and I love creating that with my Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty podcast. Like I said, we created a great community, and I really appreciate all of this. And I'm going to go now. I'm going to go carb load so that I am ready to hit the trail on Sunday. Thank you so much. Please continue to follow along as my journey continues. Have a great couple of months. I'll talk to you all in August.